outside because the blanket
headed right across New York State, and even a few flurries headed towards the coast. So quite an impressive flow here as we get several lakes involved in
only on the Weather Channel. This is WeatherScope.
Well, yesterday morning was a stormy one in the eastern United States, but that was all in advance of a cold front. In its wake, the brutal, bitter chill. And that cold continues to spread to the south and to the east. With more details on the chill and what accompanies it, here's Cheryl Emke.
Thanks, Mark, and a good Friday morning to you. Definitely we're waking up to some pretty nasty conditions over much of the country. We have some very cold, bitter temperatures and then some dangerously cold wind chills. And that cold air has worked all the way down through Georgia and Florida. So even the southeast is being affected by this latest cold spell. Well, let's see how cold temperatures actually are as we check out the temperatures around the country. It's pretty brutal out there. We have sub-zero temperatures quite commonplace now from upstate New York and northern New England down through Ohio and then dipping through the upper Midwest and northern Rockies. It's a cold one this morning. Chicago, Detroit, Buffalo, Messina, New York, and Cleveland. And look at those teens and 20s all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Now specifically as we head over towards Boston, it's only 16 degrees. 16 as well for New York City. -1 though for Pittsburgh with some light snow coming down this morning. Meanwhile, you folks around Chicago, if you're heading off to work this morning around Skokie or Evanston, it's -8, -10 up around Green Bay, and -26 in Bismarck. Of course, though, besides the cold temperatures, we've had some gusty winds. Winds this morning are still gusting from the west and northwest, typically between 25 to around 45 miles an hour from the upper Midwest and Great Lakes and back on into the northeastern states. So definitely with those stiff winds factored on in, this is how it feels on the exposed flesh. It's a cold one. These are dangerously cold wind chills from New England through the heartland. This morning around Boston, it feels like 20 degrees below zero. For Buffalo, it feels like 29 below. And again, we can't overemphasize the point that with these wind chills this cold, it just takes a matter of minutes before frostbite can set in, and likewise hypothermia. So definitely if you have to venture outside today, wear several layers of very warm clothing and protect yourself against those elements. Well, definitely we've had that cold air in place across much of the country, and one place that's had more than its fair share of cold weather has been Ohio. We have pictures to show you about how cold it has been. Very cold air continues to flow in through the Ohio Valley. Now, in west central Ohio, bitter cold temperatures yesterday made many people reluctant to venture outdoors. This is Darke County, just north of Dayton, Ohio. Temperatures fell throughout the day, and overnight, the wind chill was 40 degrees below zero. Today, the high will only be about 10 degrees, but of course, the wind chills will make it feel much, much colder than that. Now, the cold is just one aspect of this cold spell, because as we watch the colder air flowing in across the Great Lakes, we've had some heavy lake effect snows. We have some graphics to show you. This is how it's setting up this morning. Again, look at all these lines. These are isobars, lines of constant pressure. So some very strong winds are flowing across the Great Lakes, and those cold winds are picking up the moisture from the Great Lakes. Now, a lot of the Great Lakes are still kind of unfrozen at this point, and even though Lake Erie is a rather shallow lake, it's still unfrozen for some areas. So we're still able to pick up some of that moisture with those winds, and then in turn that moisture is being deposited in the form of snow showers on the lee side of the Great Lakes. We've had pretty good snows around Michigan in the last 24 hours. 6 to 12 inches of snow quite common. We've had reports of 4 to 9 inches of snow for northeastern Ohio. And then up around Buffalo, there's been about a foot of snowfall since midday yesterday. Well, this morning we're still seeing bands of snow developing around the Great Lakes from the UP of Michigan through Traverse City and down towards around Muskegon, Benton Harbor, South Bend, Indiana reporting snow. And more snows too around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. There's a little bit of snow, as you can see, around Buffalo and back on into Niagara Falls. More snow coming down this morning around Lockport and back over towards around Erie, Syracuse, and Utica, New York reporting some snow. And those streaks of snow all the way on into Teterboro, New Jersey this morning. So much of the Northeast definitely waking up to some cold, wintry conditions. Now, on top of the snow that has already fallen, there's going to be more appreciable snowfall during the afternoon. Parts of the UP of Michigan and northern sections of Michigan will see an additional 6 to 12 inches of snow, and again, very heavy snows too around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. There are winter storm warnings and winter advisories in effect. Some areas again could get pummeled by over a foot of snowfall. And something that we've seen with this latest cold spell is that the winds today across most of the Northeast kind of with a northwesterly trajectory. So unlike the heavy snows that we had over the weekend, today's snow band will be a little bit farther to the south, we think, than what we had over this past weekend. So that's good news, because some of the areas that were hard hit before might get a little bit of a break with this latest event with lake effect snow, so that's definitely good news. Well, besides the Northeast, we've got some active weather too elsewhere around the country, and to check out the weather elsewhere and to check out the forecast for your upcoming weekend, let's go back to the studios with Mark Mancuso.
Okay, thank you very much, Cheryl. And now let's talk about some dry air moving into the east. Yesterday we saw heavy rain and thunderstorms. We saw anywhere from a half inch to an inch of rain. And in eastern North Carolina, we even had a severe thunderstorm watch out for the early morning hours, and even a few severe thunderstorms came rolling on through. Also saw some very heavy weather around Elizabeth City, and you can see in the wake of those storms that deposited anywhere from a half inch to an inch of rain. A lot of big puddles, so it was a little bit slow going yesterday morning. And the beautiful Tar Heel State. As we take a look at our satellite picture this morning, all the action's long gone, and now we just have that cold, dry air coming on in. A little bit of moisture coming into Texas, but don't worry, low levels are bone dry. Northwest is where the action is with precipitation. East of the Cascades, we have ice and snow. Ice in the gorge and snow headed towards Spokane. Cheryl mentioned there's some lake effect snows going on. You can see the plumes coming in off of Lake Superior in Michigan, Erie, and Ontario. And as we check on the rainfall and snowfall the past 24 hours, you can see the oncoming front in the west depositing the precipitation. And there you can see yesterday's rains in the east. We did see anywhere from a half inch to an inch of rain all the way up from eastern North Carolina into southern and New England. Here's a look at the current map. It's cold and windy and dry in the east. The front is long gone. South Florida, record warmth yesterday. Not so today. All that's moved away. Here you can see those lake effect plumes, long-lived ones too. Look at that. Flurries coming all the way down and almost to the coastal plain here, moving in through the Taconics in southeast New York. Low pressure in northwest Mexico doesn't have much moisture to work with. Maybe a flurry, maybe a flake